Hellraiser, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, released in 1987 and subsequently went on to spawn a franchise that now numbers 11 films. Pretty amazing. Clive Barker wrote and directed the first Hellraiser based on his novellas, his novels, his written work. And now we have, as I said, 11 films, but for me, the only great ones, the only great Hellraiser movies are the first two. So that would be the first Hellraiser, released in 1987, and then the sequel, the second installment, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. Then you had Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, Hellraiser Bloodline, Hellraiser Inferno, Hellraiser Hellseeker, Hellraiser Deader, Hellraiser Hellworld, Hellraiser Revelations, Hellraiser Judgment, and the latest, the most recent, is just called again Hellraiser, and that was back in 2022. So we find ourselves, as horror fans, and I'm a big horror movie fan, we find ourselves saying, you know, some of these movies, many of them are good, I'd say watchable. They have their moments, but for me, there's only two truly great movies. That's Hellraiser and Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. And again, I mean, you can watch the others and like them, and I have. But the only great ones, the only two great Hellraiser movies are the first two. So why are the two Hellraiser movies, for me, the greatest? And I would think most fans agree with me. Again, you can, watch the others. I'm not saying you can, I do. Actually, 3 and 4 are pretty good films. They are. Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, and Hellraiser 4, Bloodline. They're good. They have moments. They do backstory with Pinhead, with the, his character, how he came to be. And then in Bloodline, in Hellraiser 4, how the box came to be, the construction more and such. And they're fine. But the first two are integrated and connected because they're direct sequels. And because we have a family, we've got a family that is being sort of plagued and sort of connected to the box, to the Cenobites, to Pinhead. You have Claire, the stepmother, and you have Kirsty, of course, and her dad, and then Uncle Frank. So you've got this almost a soap opera in a way, and I say that in the best sense, in the best, foundation of a narrative, of a soap opera, of a serial. You've got these characters all interconnected, and they get enmeshed with the Cenobites, with the box, and with Pinhead. So in the first film, we meet the Cotton family, Larry Cotton, his wife Claire, and Ashley. And this is the sort of trio that will be focused on. But of course, we have Frank Cotton, Kirsty's uncle. And he's going to be very important because he brings forth the Cenobites, Pinhead, the Hellraiser from the box. And this is what I feel is the most important and essential ingredient in really any horror movie. We can go to see quickly Halloween with Michael Myers and his quote-unquote sister later, Laurie Strode. We find out later, but we realize that this is the reason, or one of the main reasons and sort of allures and traps for Laurie and her brother Michael Myers. But back to Hellraiser again, but we're talking about family. We're talking about the connections and how meaningful that is. So that when Kirsty realizes that her uncle has done this to the family, to her dad, and then realizes that Claire is the one facilitating it, it makes all the difference, and it makes all the importance to have our emotional investment. We want to be emotionally invested in characters in any movie. And I think with horror films, it's sort of ratcheted up because there's such high stakes, such tension, and such emotion. And then we move to Hellbound Hellraiser 2, the sequel, which is a rare one, a rare sequel in any franchise, which is I wouldn't even say almost as good. It continues the story in such a great way and such an expansive way. It expands the Hellraiser, Cenobite, Pinhead, all that good stuff we got in the first movie, and it expands and grows. And Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, the sequel, we have Claire as the main antagonist, the main character, whereas in the first one we had Frank Cotton, the uncle, who was Claire's lover. And again, there's that sort of soap, that good soapy serial sort of connectedness to characters. So Kirsty has to sort of go again against Claire in the sequel, and any good franchise, any good, sequel-oriented series of movies has connectivity. So we keep on connecting. Sadly, for Hellraiser 3, 4, as we're going forward, those connections are lost. Now, is that because of budget? Did they not want to keep paying, Ashley Laurence, the actress who plays Kirsty? Of course, we have Doug Bradley in most of them. I think he did 8. Then I think he rejected 9 or 10 or the new one, and he didn't want, he didn't like the script or whatever and demanded changes. So they used another actor. And that's another thing. Even though you can accept other actors in roles, you look at Robert Englund as Freddy, it's kind of hard to, visualize and accept anyone other than him, though, of course, they age and, they get too expensive. But again, with Hellraiser, the connectivity between and the connection between, say, Pinhead and Kirsty alone is something which fans love. Say like Laurie Strode in Halloween with Michael Myers. Say like a Van Helsing with Dracula. You want your arch enemy, you want your foe, and you want your connectiveness. And if you don't have that, the movies, the installments sort of fade. They get weaker. So that's my basic theory for why Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2 are the only great installments in the Hellraiser franchise. The others are perfectly serviceable. I was watching a couple the other night. I was watching Inferno, Judgment, Hellseeker, and they have their moments. One thing, though, is very disappointing. They usually save Pinhead till sort of the last act. You get maybe a whisper, a whiff, an odor of him in the first act or two, and then he comes in to sort of, you're doing badly, or you're doing hellish, and I must punish you. And it's, it's interesting. It's, for a fan, it gives us something. But, and of course, Hellraiser has always been about the Cenobites, coming in sort of maybe in really the beginning, middle, end. You get more than just a taste at the end. And I think the writing, the scripting, and the stories of these other installments are just very wanting and very lacking. So there you go. I have faith, though. I'd love to see more Hellraiser. The last one, the 2022 one, was pretty bad. I can't even begin to. Maybe I'll do a full video on that, but it was incredibly wanting. Production was great costumes, great, special effects in ways, but again, the story, the characters, no connection, no emotional involvement within maybe the new, sphere, but nothing that we want to see as fans. Like, again, a Dracula with his Van Helsing, like a Ripley with the Alien, like a Laurie Strode with Michael Myers. These are things. Look at what the new Halloween franchise has done. It introduced new characters. There was other installments, but it was Dr. Loomis and or Laurie. A connection and involvement, emotions. Hope you're enjoying. Hope you're subscribing. See you soon.